Nexperia, a Dutch-Chinese chipmaker, you know the one, has become the topic of discussion, not just for trade, not just for tech, but also for the auto supply chain angst that Europe is now feeling. Let's get an update on what exactly is going on.
So before giving an update, let me actually first start by saying thank you very much to all of the commenters, and we had hundreds of them in our last update with Nexperia, who corrected me in some of the things that I was saying. Essentially, I had claimed that China was blocking the access of rare earth minerals to Nexperia, the Chinese company that's currently incorporated in the Netherlands and has been taken over by the Dutch government. And the claims were absolutely correct. They were not doing that. What they were doing is they were restricting the chips manufactured in China to be able to move to Nexperia in the Netherlands. And as a result, this ended up becoming a debacle within the EU because Nexperia also feeds a lot of the automotive sector in the EU. And so as a result of the Netherlands taking over Nexperia in the Netherlands, what China had done is that they had started signaling that they would restrict rare earths and chips over to the EU, further worsening the situation within the EU, especially within the automotive sector. But now what China has signaled is that they are not going to be punishing the European automotive sector and very likely large parts of the EU. Even though there is a negotiation happening right now between China and the Netherlands over the discussion of Nexperia, and there's a discussion of being able to repatriate Nexperia, and there's also a lot of rumors around what's happening with Nexperia, China has decided to dull the flame a little bit and try to bring everybody back to the table. And this is a very responsible approach that could have really triggered an economic warning within the EU.
I mean, kudos to China for playing this as diplomatically as they have so far to bring further light to the point that you were making. The components that Nexperia makes, power control transistors, diodes, are in virtually every electronic and automotive product. So to prevent these chips from reaching the EU would have had a catastrophic impact on the overall supply chain in the automotive industry. And China was very much within their right to do that. I mean, a country is always within their right to ban certain substances from leaving their country, especially when overnight the Dutch government seized control of the Nexperia entity. And for China to not take a step forward in this new battle that they found themselves in, but in fact to walk back from the brink of the edge that they probably found themselves at is very impressive. But it also begs the question, why? Why today in a world where countries are picking sides as to whether they're pro-US or pro-China, why did China decide not to go to battle with this? What are they actually waiting for? What is actually at stake here?
So I can venture a guess, because one of the things that we also do know is that Donald Trump has now made a tour across Asia, and he has been securing rare earth deals across a number of different countries, from Cambodia to Vietnam to Thailand, Japan, etc. And the reason that this is important is because it's going to, over time, reduce China's power on the rare earths and chips game. And as a result, this is one of the places where they're playing a bit more of a long game, where they do need to be able to have more favor with the EU and certain concessions that they want to achieve from the EU by being able to be nice at this stage. That's my guess. But at the same time, there's so many other factors also weighing in that are these small levers that we see. For example, from an agriculture perspective, we're also starting to see that China is changing their consumption patterns for everything from chickpeas, which they used to buy from the US, and now they've almost eliminated their orders, and they're going to countries like Argentina and other places. And so we're starting to see all of these other tentacles with agriculture and other spaces, which are all part of the geopolitical game. And so in that, my guess is that they are looking to be able to calm the waters with the EU over this topic, because they need a little bit more time, fodder, and space to be able to maneuver with the things that are coming up.
Which actually makes a lot of sense. But let's think about this as well from a company perspective. Can afford to some extent make decisions left, right, do whatever. But who does this really impact? It impacts day-to-day consumers like you and me. It impacts the companies that have trade agreements, that have an idea of where their supply of, wheels or chassis is coming from next. And how do they now react in this ever-changing world. They now need to seriously reevaluate all of their sourcing needs, their contingency plans, and also their tech governance of critical inputs, from things like software as a service models that they rely upon to things like diodes that I was mentioning earlier. Whatever it might be, companies now need to have a contingency plan for their contingency plan, and it has to be based on geopolitical risk.
Without a doubt, I hope that there are companies, especially in the medium-sized to large entities, that are really taking into account many of these different scenarios. What are the geopolitical levers that countries are negotiating, bartering with, and even playing games with in such a way that companies need to be reactive to? They need to have contingency plans, as you said, but at the same time, they need to get ahead of this because otherwise they will always be victims to geopolitical decisions. And that is a whole new way to play the game.